Welcome to eDiscovery Leaders Live, where I get a chance to chat with luminaries in eDiscovery and related areas. This broadcast is sponsored by Reveal Brainspace, the industry's leading AI eDiscovery platform. Don't forget to subscribe to watch me, George Socha, weekly with leaders in eDiscovery. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome to eDiscovery Leaders Live, hosted by ACEDS and sponsored by Reveal. I am George Socha. I head up brand awareness at Reveal. On each episode of eDiscovery Leaders Live, I get the chance to chat with luminaries in eDiscovery and related areas. Past episodes are available on the Reveal website. Go to revealdata.com, select resources, then select eDiscovery Leaders Live. Our guest this week is Geoffrey Vance. Geoffrey is a partner and the firm-wide chair of eDiscovery Services and Strategy Practice at the firm of Perkins, Coie. Jeff, welcome. Glad to have you join us today. I would like to start with a little history lesson, if we could. Taking a look at the evolution of eDiscovery from early days to today. So why don't you jump in with that?
Well, good morning. As luck would have it, we had a little glitch in the computer right at the beginning, but it's great to be here. And hey, we wouldn't be in this profession without technology. So it's really excited to talk about technology in our legal space. I think you asked about history, my own personal history.
Yeah. Let's start with your personal history, and then let's talk about the larger history of eDiscovery.
Sure. Well, my own history is I'm an Army brat. My dad was a dentist in the Army, so I moved a lot in my earlier years and went to college and went to law school, and then decided I wanted to settle down. So I settled down in Chicago and was an associate at an international law firm. And at the time, I thought I drew the short straw, but in hindsight, I think I drew the right straw, because I was assigned to our firm's first eDiscovery task force. And you know, George, when you think you're dealt a bad hand, you do two things: you either quit or you try to play the best hand you possibly play. And I tried to make the best out of it. And lo and behold, it was a great decision, because here I am now, 25, 26 years later, still in the industry and still proud to be a part of it. And that's which sort of segues into what you asked, which was, having been in this industry since the beginning, what I've seen in the history, and I really am proud to say, well, I remember visiting you in Minneapolis way back when, that this industry has matured. I mean, I remember at the very beginning, this industry started because eDiscovery was a big complaint for clients. It was just the bane of their existence. It was so expensive, so miserable, such a distraction, that when people said eDiscovery, they hated it, and they wanted us to do something about it. Now, fast forward to here, I'm really proud. It's a really great thing. I think we make cases more efficient. We make cases cheaper. We actually find evidence that will help our clients win. And now I think we have created an industry that is really invaluable to the overall legal environment.
And I think as well, this doesn't get talked about perhaps as much as it should. I know when I started practicing, a partner would come into my office, drop a box on my desk. It was maybe a third full, maybe half full. Those were the documents for the case. We'd get a few more, maybe, and maybe not. We had to do all the same things that we have to do today to work a case up to trial. But today we got more than just a few inches of documents in a box in a case, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, obviously we send too many emails, too many texts. We have all sorts of electronic files, word processing files, and including Excel files. And yeah, our life is based on electronic transmission. That is for sure. And we kept everything, and we know exactly how to get it, as opposed to the old days when, if people had a read well, they didn't exactly know where it was. I don't know that it still exists. And so there's just wasn't as much data anywhere near it. And even when there was, because I cut my teeth on the tobacco days, so we were in warehouses for months looking through data. Man, that was a terrible experience versus now. Even when we have that much data, I actually can find data that we want to find at a much quicker pace in a much better environment, and all for the better for the client versus sitting in a warehouse for months, tired, sweaty, and often losing focus on what we were trying to do.
So how do we accomplish this now with these enormous volumes of data?
Well, we accomplish it with people like you and companies like you. I mean, software has been the difference. So I think it's been the start of the big difference. Software clearly has helped us manage information, make better decisions about the information when we include artificial intelligence and now generative AI. Software certainly has helped all of that, but it also has been the people. The people have are so talented now. They know the software, they know the workflows, the processes, they know the context of what we're trying to accomplish. And so if you have that really awesome technology that you know very well exists, and you have these people who are now making a career out of it versus kind of being stuck doing it, we have this great work product, and that's what we've seen. So I've been lucky enough to lead e-discovery groups for decades, and the talent we have now has never been better, both on the attorney side and on the technologist side. These people just are experts at what they do and like what they do at the same time.
So let's go back to something you said a little earlier. You and we did not set out to have careers in e-discovery. We walked backwards or sideways into those careers. It's a new world now. E-discovery isn't a plan B always. What does it look like now?
It's a great phrase. It's not a plan B, it's plan A. I mean, there are people who come out of law school and they want to be experts in litigation technology, which is e-discovery technology at its heart. There are technologists who don't want to be lit support personnel, they used to be called, or paralegals who want to do something more and move into the e-discovery industry. And they are legal technology experts. They are project managers, which we've always needed in the law, and now thank goodness we have them. They're a combination of all sorts of various roles. Up in the world in a law firm.
Yeah, I think we lost you there, or I lost you there. I'm not sure which for a little bit. But I'll pick up where I think we were leaving off, which is that, as you said, there's a path here. There's a plan A. There's also, obviously, given your role, a path to partnership. That didn't exist at all when I was last in a law firm. There was no such thing as a path to partnership. How can people not just survive? How can lawyers not just survive, but thrive in law firms and have a viable path to partnership and success beyond that in e-discovery?
Sure. Well, you're right. So way back when, e-discovery was not something that was thought of as a money generator. First of all, it didn't generate any revenue. It was more of an expense. It was considered part of the IT overhead of a firm. I don't know that people trusted that electronic discovery experts could be could actually generate not just revenue from one client, but generate the ability to develop business from other clients, and affect the reputation and the brand of a law firm. And that, to me, is what you have to demonstrate to be partner. You have to demonstrate that you're excellent at what you do, that you can improve the brand and reputation of a law firm, you can develop business, and you can generate revenue. If you're able to do all of those things, then that is basically what being a partner is. And if you can lead projects that are both profitable and successful for the client, that's the formula. And so, yeah, what e-discovery now offers is the ability to get new cases, to get new work, to generate new revenue, and to become very profitable, to throw profit back into the law firm. That's how a partner is made.
Now, You are not the only e-discovery partner in a law firm, but you all are not thick on the ground yet either. What do you see that looking like these days, and where do you see that headed?
Well, I think we're going to stop talking about e-discovery and just call it litigation. I mean, I think every great litigator needs to know e-discovery or discovery. And I think we have now realized that if you want to win cases, you need to manage your discovery projects better. You need to manage the cost, but also manage the work product. And that's how you win in litigation. So I think most litigators will morph into becoming discovery experts as well, rather than delegating to entire groups, or historically we delegate down to junior associates or paralegals. All great people, really smart, but this isn't something you really want to delegate anymore. This is something that should be front and center of every partner's mind if you're going to be the senior lawyer, senior trial attorney leading a case. So that's why I think how it sort of becomes more horizontal. I think instead of delegating down to other people to do this, I think more and more partners who are growing up in the newer generations are going to be experts at e-discovery as they become experts in being a trial lawyer, and then become first chair trial lawyers with excellent e-discovery or discovery experience. I think that's how it works holistically.
Yeah, I remember a time when the path to prestige and therefore clients and partners was to try cases. And within cases, if you weren't actually the lead trial lawyer, you wanted to be working with the expert witnesses.
Sure.
The last thing you wanted to do was get anywhere near a document or a fact. And yet it always seemed to me that, you really want to have the facts on your side. You want to figure out what facts are there and how to build your story from it. It sounds to me as if there's perhaps a growing appreciation for the value that managing, building stories from facts, and hence e-discovery, brings to the table these days.
Amen. By the way, amen. I mean, if we're depending on our trial experience to make partner or to demonstrate our value, 1 out of 100 cases go to trial. I mean, you just don't. The cases generally get worked up, and we either resolve them by settlement or through some sort of summary judgment process. So that's the process with trying to be this great trial lawyer and staking your claim to be a trial lawyer, because you rarely try cases. You're often in lots of hearings and depositions, and you can demonstrate your experience and value there. But I think the tweak in that, George, is that yes, to the partnership, maybe the trial lawyers are the ones that stand out. But to the clients, it's always been the lawyers who knew the facts that stood out to them. It's always the clients going to the people who knew the documents and knew the testimony and knew the legal theories that the clients would go to ask questions, to ask for advice. So I think that those people have always been important to the clients, and now we realize as law firms that they should be important to us too. You don't have. I mean, I've been involved in lots of cases where the trial lawyer would swoop in over a weekend with binders surrounding him or her, try to get up to speed, and then give an opening statement on Monday with very little experience in the case. That can't work anymore. That just doesn't work. And the people who know the facts will crush the other side if they don't know the facts, or if their senior lawyers don't know the facts. So yeah, I think knowing the facts, being involved in what we now call document review from the beginning to the end, is what makes a good lawyer. And it's what sets me apart. I actually love it. I love interrogating data or investigating data, asking the right questions, learning more about the case, so that when we get to the trial, I don't have to turn around and ask someone what the facts are. I know them.
So doing another then and now contrast, there was a time when the trial lawyer was the one you brought in to pitch a client, a new client especially, on work, to try to convince them that you had the chops, your firm was going to be able to handle this. These days, it's of course got to be very different. What are clients looking for when it comes to what's made in the pitch from a law firm with respect to e-discovery?
I mean, what a great question, because I think every law firm has their big hitter trial lawyers. So it's really hard to differentiate yourself if all you are doing is bringing your heavy hitters to the pitch. By the way, those heavy hitters generally already have a relationship with those clients. That's why they're there. And so it's just sort of par for the course. And I will say my frustration historically is that oftentimes the pitches would not include e-discovery and would not include groups like the ones I led. And that's really frustrating when you're trying to educate the law firm, my partners, the clients, why we're so valuable. And the clients are like, well, if you're so valuable, why weren't you part of the pitch? Now, it all worked out because the clients were the ones that were starting to raise their hand saying, hey, if you're telling me that discovery is 40 to 50% of our budget or maybe more, why the heck don't you have a discovery presentation in your pitch? If you're telling me that you're going to take 15 terabytes of data and go through it and find the hot docs in less than, I don't know, 3 months for less than $1 million, why isn't that part of your pitch? And by the way, the people you're competing against had it in their pitch. That's where it's worked out. And now it is a best practice to have discovery as part of every pitch. And I'm seeing it more and more, which is great because then we get to explain what really differentiates ourselves from the other law firms without just talking dollars and cents.
So when it comes to that explanation, what sort of things do you highlight for the potential new, the prospects, these potential new clients or new work from existing clients for that matter?
Yeah, well, we highlight our proficiency in software. I mean, the clients are the ones that are jumping up and down. What Gen A are you going to use for us? Mm-hmm. Or even just more general, not generative, but more general AI. So we definitely make sure people understand that how our intimate knowledge of the software will make sure that the case is were run efficiently and not as expensive as other law firms would. And again, I keep going back to this theme and finding the documents that will help our client win and finding the documents that we can use to defend and prepare our witnesses so that in their depositions, they don't get crushed. So that's what we do. But I just think, overall, I think clients want to hear that you understand the significance of discovery. This is not something you vend out all the time. And by the way, that's not saying you don't want to vend out, but you want to keep track of it. You want to supervise it, manage it. You don't want to delegate all of it out for someone else to worry about. I think if you demonstrate that how important this process is and how and the experience of your team, that this is what they do, this is what they like doing, they've been great at it. And then to your point, you point to all of the other cases that you've worked on and give them some snippets of different cases we've worked on. Let's say we worked on an active learning case with 10 million documents and it took us this long and cost us this much. And here's where we got. All of that is something the clients want to hear. And I do think they use that to make their decision on who to hire.
You mentioned a little while back the topic of the moment, generative AI. There have been a number of surveys done, quite a bit written about the views of folks in law firms and the views of folks in corporate legal departments when it comes to generative AI. Yes, no, if so, how, all of that. What are you seeing?
Well, I see. Well, first of all, right when Gen AI became, well, what was it, a year ago, when it was all the rage, I saw a lot of law firms pulling back. I mean, we hear all the horror stories about generative AI, right? And it really is the both way concern. One is, are we going to have our clients' data commingled with public data and leak it? And then two, are we making decisions for our client that are based on just this random set of massive amounts of documents and data around the world that will lead to bias or other, create other challenges. So I do think law firms immediately stopped, took a deep breath and said, hey, we got to watch out. And the media, the press didn't help with that. Thankfully, and I come from a law firm that fancies itself as a law firm for tech companies, we did sort of take a deep breath, we exhaled, and we figured it out and realized that this process in our industry doesn't have those challenges. We have a limited data set we're talking about. We're using LLMs and other solutions that may be based in part on external data, but it's not really. It's just based on a software that sort of learned from that. But when we make decisions, it's based on our training the system and it giving us feedback from the data that we put in. And so I think once we started to figure it out, and then all you have to do, is just goof around with it, you see the value right away. Immediately, you see the value. And then it becomes fun. Then it's kind of a toy, but a good toy in that you're getting value right away. You're learning things that you would have taken you weeks to learn.
Or months.
Or months, or in some cases years if you're talking about 50 terabytes worth of data. So once we do that, and then we demonstrate to the client that we can actually figure this data out and then give legal advice based on it, all in a matter of days or weeks, it sells itself. And so I mean, yes, we're at the very beginning of this process, and software solutions like the ones that your company has are really exciting to see, but I can only imagine if we fast forward a year or two what it's going to be like. And that's why it's exciting to be part of this industry. I never thought I'd say that out loud, but it is. It's exciting to be part of this industry, and probably this is the best time to be part of it.
Oh, well, for me, I feel like the technology is finally at the place I wished for 35 years ago, and the things that potentially can be done now are, for me, it seems enormous. So I'm a kid in a candy shop right now when it comes to all of this.
That's right.
One of the concerns that we've been hearing throughout has to do with bias. I have my thoughts on that, but I'd like to hear yours first. I suspect we're somewhat aligned, but let's hear what you have to say.
Well, first, here's my instinctive response. I don't know enough, and I rely on other people like you and people within my firm. I mean, there are people within my firm whose jobs, it is to educate us about the bias and to make sure that we identify it and deal with it if we see it. So yeah. Now I'll say the bias that we're when I'm looking for documents that are responsive or that are relevant to a particular issue, I'm less worried about bias because it's not going to be perfect, but the whole point is to find information that I think is important to me, and I will know right away if it's important to me, and it's not going to lead me to make decisions that are life-changing for other people. The kind of bias that you are terrified about when you talk about generative AI. But then again, as I said, I know it exists. I know it's something we should be concerned about, or at least an issue we should address. And then I look to people like you to tell me, all right, Jeff, here's what you should do.
So I'll give you thoughts on a different spin on bias. One of the things we need to do as we work up matters is to try to look at the matters from many different directions. That's part of what makes a really good lawyer, is the ability to step back and look from all sorts of different directions. And one of the things you need to do in some cases is try to stand in the shoes of someone who has allegedly had a huge degree of bias in an inappropriate way. And what better way to do that but then to build a construct of that person through the data available. And to do that, you want to incorporate bias into the process so as to mimic that bias rather than to eliminate the ability to have bias in there. Can we do that today? Not exactly, but I think that's one of the directions we'll be headed. So that's a very different take on it. And now one of us froze again.
Okay, I think I'm back.
Okay, one of us froze there.
But I heard everything you said, George, and that's why people like me need to listen to people like you. That's exactly right. We're talking about diversity. There's also diversity of ideas, some really bad ideas, some really terrible, hurtful ideas, but that's life. And I think if you include all of that, include all of the information, including biased information, I think it gets us to where reality should get us to. And I rely on experts to make sure that it does not negatively affect the work product, the ultimate work product of the group for me.
So I'd like to, in the, about 5 minutes remaining, touch on two more topics. Another one you mentioned earlier, the significant upgrade we have seen in talent in our industry. Comment.
Oh, well, as I mentioned before, it's a career, and it's a competitive career. And there are people who have gone to college and taken courses, and all of the great software here gives certifications, and they are truly experts at making sure that we use each of these software solutions to the best of our ability. And that phrase is often used too much, but this is truly someone does. It's not just I'm able to go and open Word and find and replace. I am not an expert in Word, and there is someone who is. Well, I'm not an expert in any of these review platforms in the AI either. I know enough how to use them, but the technologists now can and they're scientists, right? They're data scientists now. Can make sure that we are using the software exactly as it's supposed to be used, and it's really cool to see. This is not people who are who they're with this where if this is their plan B, or maybe just as their holding pattern where they figure out what they really want to do. This is what they want to do, and there is a career, a quite competitive, well-paying career. And what I love now is, and I tell this to people who work with me all the time, it's not a bad thing if you find a job that you really like at a different place. I'm proud of that. It's really cool to see that this industry has gotten to a point where there is a ladder that you can climb, different company to different company, and really be the best in the biz. And we see all these ILTA awards and all the other awards of legal tech, of giving awards to true thought leaders, through true people who have transformed our legal industry in the e-discovery niche.
Let's then close with having you gaze, as we necessarily do through cataract eyes, into a murky crystal ball to try to figure, get your thoughts on where next. Where is all of this potentially headed?
Well, I should start with I do not have cataracts because I just had LASIK surgery about
There you go.
feeling great. I went from 2015 to 2015 in a night. But even then, doesn't give me any ability to look into the future other than guess. But wow, I think we talked about this is a great time to be in our industry. Generative AI has been a long time coming. It is exactly what we dreamed about, like you said, for decades. And it's here. Now it's on us to ratchet it up, to use it in almost everything we do, to make sure that we can be, we can do the win-wins. We can be more cost effective. We can be more efficient, and yet be even better at what we're called upon to do. And I think in a matter of 1 year, I think we're going to look back and say that was a heck of a ride in a year. And I think in 5 years, it's going to be an entirely different industry where we drive it. We will be legal tech. I mean, it's not going to be e-discovery. It's just legal tech. And groups like ours will transform into a legal tech group, not just an electronic discovery group. And we've already seen it, right? E-discovery is no longer e-discovery. We don't just work for litigators. We work for corporate lawyers and real estate lawyers and white collar investigators. And we use the same technologies, the same people, same processes to help everyone in our law firm, in every practice group. And it's only going to get better from here.
Well, on an upbeat, positive note like that, I think we should bring it to a close.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Geoffrey Vance is, again, a partner and the firm-wide chair of e-discovery services and strategy practice at Perkins Coie. I am George Socha. This has been e-discovery Leaders Live, hosted by ACEDS and sponsored by Reveal. Jeff, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's been a lot of fun. Thank you.